Hello, everybody. It's Dan Szematowicz. Before we get started, just want to encourage you to follow us and check us out on social if you haven't. We've been doing a lot more there and a lot more newsy stuff. We've kind of shifted the way we've done things in that area. So I'm out there a lot more. I'm posting stuff that's happening in the news and I'm talking about it and I'm having conversations there too. I'm going to find out what you think about what's happening in the news, about the stories that we're putting out there and highlighting. I also want to know what stories are we not watching that we should take a look at. So come join me at social. Check out what we're doing. We're at deviant.podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you want to go a little deeper on the stories we're telling, check out our Patreon, deviantpodcast.com. Come talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Welcome back to Deviant, where we chase the truth into the dark corners of what humans are capable of. I'm Dan Szematowicz, and for the very first time, well, in a very long time, not very first time, I'm joined by my podcast better half, Andrew Iden.
Greetings to you, sir. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Like we have not been on the show together, but we have been working together. We've been doing our thing in our way and enjoying the summer. How's yours been?
Warm and lots of rain.
As summer should be.
Yeah.
I'm in Florida, so same answer.
Yeah.
We just wanted to join everyone. Yeah. We just wanted to join everyone today and let you know what we're working on. We've been working on, update you on some of the stuff that we've been watching and we've been telling you about, and let you know what you can expect down the road.
Right. And I think, I wanted to tell you that I enjoyed your story about the Devil's Den murders and sort of the pursuit of that guy.
It's a crazy story.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting that we had two crime stories that involved manhunts in Arkansas within like 30 days of each other.
Yeah, and there were sort of two different manhunts, right? Like the first one we did that you did a show about was Grant Hardin. He was the former police chief that just walked out of prison, right?
Yeah, put on sort of like prisoner or prison warden garb and walked right out the door. And somebody opened the door for him. Obviously, unbeknownst to them, he was an inmate, but sort of.
Whoops.
When we talked to Michael Cantrell, if you remember, he was a longtime prison warden in Arkansas.
Yep.
And he talked about that's actually easier than you might think, just because there's so much stuff that's going on, and you look up and it's like, oh, somebody needs to get through the gate, and you hit the button. Like, I can kind of, in a roundabout way, I can kind of see how that happens.
Yeah, and if anybody understands the system, it's going to be a former police chief, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that was a very odd few days in Arkansas, and again, he was in prison for murder and a bunch of other things, but they finally caught him. And the other Arkansas manhunt was, just recently, and that was the murder in Devil's Den. We did a show on it last week. The suspect, his name's Andrew James McGann. That was a really interesting sequence of events because much different than Hardin, because when Hardin went on the run and there was a manhunt for him, they knew who they were looking for, right? After the Devil's Den murders happened, then those, just to recap, if you haven't listened to the show, make sure you do, but quick recap. Family of four went hiking in Devil's Den, Arkansas, popular state park. 2 adults and 2 of their 3 children, ages 7 and 9. A man jumped out and attacked the parents. The children escaped unharmed. The parents died. And it was a random attack, and no one knew, there was no apparent victimology, no connection to the victims. But through great police work and sloppy criminal work allegedly on the part of McGann, he was caught after just a few days.
Yeah. And and horrific is not even really a good enough word, but like what those poor children went through. I mean,
and what they're going to go through for the rest of their lives.
They will continue to go through is just, unfathomable. And, that story makes me think about, I like the outdoors and I like going hiking and stuff. I've had conversations with
that's
people.
where you had your first podcast. It was all about hiking.
Right. And
nothing about crime.
Yeah. And like people have this sort of, notion of like, oh, you're going to go into the woods and you're going to get, some crazy guy's going to do something. And like, that doesn't happen. But then when this happens, it sort of underscores that, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Enforces a certain stereotype that
right,
you do not
exactly.
wish to be enforced.
And
like the narrative.
And these parents just going in, having a fantastic kind of like a camping trip with their family, and like it's just awful all the way around.
Yeah, because we've talked about this before, maybe on this show, definitely off this show, where you've expressed this before, and like my thing is, there's a reason that campfire stories are campfire stories, and they're told around a campfire, right? It's the woods when they're dark. It's just a different context than most people are used to. It's easy to make it spooky, and there have been enough crimes, actual crimes, and there are enough fairy tales and tales of oral tradition that are old that are super scary that happen in the woods, where it's just set up that way.
Yeah,
and then things like Devil's Den happen, and it just echoes all that stuff. The thing that first jumped to mind when Devil's Den happened was how much it echoed the Delphi murders in Indiana, right? Like, you had two people apparently randomly murdered in the woods by a stranger. Not too long after the news about that came out, pictures started coming out, a sketch. It happened a lot faster than Delphi.
Yeah.
But, they're just, similar echoes, and everything we were learning about how the crime happened screamed weird and bizarre, and all that was true. There was no connection that we know of to Delphi. Of course, the game everyone's playing right now is this the first time Andrew James McGann killed? And everyone is, you're probably, if you are following the story, you're probably seeing all sorts of news articles like, could this have been McGann? Could this have been McGann? Could this have been McGann? And I've been looking at those stories too, some of those stories too. I have my own candidates, because my theory, as I mentioned in last week's show, is that I don't think this was the first time that he committed something like this, because if you listen to our Israel Keys coverage, Andrew, this sounds a lot like what happened when Israel Keys started losing control and getting sloppy. I don't know if it echoed like that to you also.
Yeah, and I wanted to just add that these stories that come out about, like, is he responsible for this crime or is he responsible for that crime? Like, you got to be careful with those things, because that's how you get into scenarios where law enforcement, in their desire to close a case, might overlook things that they shouldn't be overlooking. And so you just have to be really careful with linking things when you don't have all the pieces there.
And another friendly reminder is that the law enforcement people who are working those cases that are still open that could be attached to him or might not be at all, they have 100 times the amount of information that we do about those cases.
Yeah.
Right. So they have a much clearer picture. That said, if you follow his movements, where he was when his dark spots were, and you look for similar types of crimes, you can find maybes, right? Like, I haven't found anything looking around, which is why I'm not going to say any names. Like, oh yeah, that sounds a lot like him. But there are confluences of crimes and his presence that are intriguing. And it may turn out, after all, allegedly, that this was his first, right? That this was some sort of dark fantasy that he had. And allegedly he goes out there and does it. He's just not very good at it. We're going to find out this week, as we're recording this. We're a few days before his next scheduled hearing. And in theory, we're here that we're going to learn more about some of the details of what he allegedly confessed, what was allegedly found at the crime scene, just more details. And of course, as I mentioned in the intro to this show, we've been doing a lot more on social media and updates of stories that are happening. And I'll make sure to update that too when that happens.
Let's talk about summer school.
Yes.
Did you like doing the summer school episodes?
Yes. There may be more coming. What we've both done so far has been really fascinating. And, we sort of divvy up the recordings to, for areas that particularly intrigue us. But one thing I found, and please don't take this the wrong way, this is meant as a compliment, okay? Stuff that, this is audio only, but I wish you could see the look he's giving me right now. But stuff that I find generally, traditionally less interesting than you do, you made me much more interested in it. Like you really, yeah. See, compliment. I'm capable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the conversations were really interesting, and there were things that I learned that surprised me that I didn't know about, or I learned more about that I didn't really place as much importance.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Do you have an example of that?
Yes. I should have thought about that before I said yes. No, I actually,
if you don't, it's,
I actually do. It was the first one we did with Darren Porcher. We talked about policing in America. It was sort of a macro view, right? And one thing that I learned, which, when I think about it, it makes all the sense of the world, but I just never thought about it in this way, is that, policing is handled in different ways in different communities, right? Like the way the NYPD operates is not how, Bardstown, Kentucky operates, right?
Yeah.
And they all use statistics in different ways. And it's just like, my takeaway from that is like, you think about criminal science and the study of it. And oftentimes it seems like sometimes it's more art than science. There are just so many variables that you can't apply one set of rules to any one place. That makes all the sense in the world, but I never thought about it in such a grand scale like that.
Well, and I also think that a lot of people don't realize like the strategies behind police work, and like, there's all the data and the analytics and the statistics and how all of that works. And I do know that when Darren Porcher and I were having that conversation, I thought, we've talked a lot about like, what fits under sort of the Deviant umbrella. And I think that we have kind of widened that scope, but I felt like it was important because he's a guy that has a doctorate in this stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody seemingly has sort of like a take or an opinion on how, or, what the strategy should be for policing, sort of like in kind of like in this,
It's not that just he has a doctorate; he did it also.
Well, right, yeah, exactly.
Doctorate, and he did it.
He comes from he's worked the streets, right? And so I've always thought it'd be really fascinating to sit down with a police officer who knows this kind of stuff and just hear sort of his unfiltered thoughts on sort of strategies and how all of that works with policing. So I knew that Darren was kind of the guy to help us go through all of that.
It's interesting. I wasn't there for the interview. I only watched it out, as we were assembling the show. And he seemed to loosen up a bit and feel more free with his words the more that your conversation went. I think he's a little more guarded at first, but he seemed to open up and say some things that I think he really wanted to say in a more unfiltered way. I don't know if you got that impression too, but it's like...
Well, yeah, and Darren's also, people may know him from television. He's done a lot of TV work, and so I think he's kind of used to doing things sort of in a TV structure. But yeah, it was kind of nice to get some of that unfiltered thought. And one of the things he mentioned when we talked about police stats was that like he doesn't think police stats should be taken by police, which really surprised me. So here's a little bit of that.
This is something that I've said for years on end. I felt that there should be an independent entity that takes the reports, not the police department. If you have an independent entity that's in a police precinct, I think that would be such a great addition to ensuring that we have clean statistics, because ultimately it's an elected official that touts the statistics on how they've been tremendously successful in reducing crime. But if you have that independent entity, such as an educated person that takes these reports, and that's what's submitted, I think that we would have a more clear-cut number in terms of either if crime is going up or crime is going down.
So yeah, that sort of surprised me that a guy who came through the NYPD and has a doctorate in all of this stuff is actually is suggesting the idea that what if an independent third party handled all of that? It was interesting.
Yeah. We love us some Darren Porcher on this show. Any other summer schools tickle your fancy? What did you learn, or what surprised you from the shows we've done?
So I really liked your conversation with Mike Hammond, retired Chicago police detective.
I love Mike.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and much like Darren Porcher, like he's a guy that's been through, all of this and walking through Like from the moment a murder case comes in, right, and it crosses the desk, sort of the process of going through that and identifying suspects and figuring out what evidence you have, what you don't have, and how all of that plays into closing a case. Like, it's almost old hat at this point, but like it is not like you see on TV. And I think anybody you talk to in any sort of corner of the criminal investigation universe will tell you it's not like it is on TV, whether it's a detective, a profiler, a beat cop, whatever. That's not to say it's not interesting, but it's never like we see it on TV.
And it's interesting because Mike did this TV style cases, right? Like for a long time, if you remember that conversation, a lot of the murders and homicides in Chicago are because of the drug trade and drug violence. And, that is one of Chicago's challenges. But after he sort of was in that zone, and not all of his were those kinds of cases, that's just what most of them turned out to be. He turned to cold cases. So he got to work the cold cases too. And later in his career, learn a whole new set of skills, right?
Yeah.
The big whodunits, which I think is the fantasy of a lot of Chicago detectives or a lot of homicide detectives, period. And he got to do that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, summer school was fun.
Yeah, we've also been doing some interesting off scripts too. If you haven't, it's almost the summer of scams, right? We've all been getting those crazy phone calls or texts or emails trying to, hey, what's up? Which we know is a scam. We talked to two that I think were really good conversations. We talked to a former Secret Service agent who specialized in polygraphs. He did something like 18,000 polygraphs. And we learned all about learning emotional cues and how to tell someone is lying or, how to raise our social IQs, which was a little bit off the beaten path for us, but I thought that was a pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah, polygraphs are an interesting thing in the crime universe, right? Because they're obviously not admissible as evidence in court. So there is some level of doubt when it comes to how accurate they are. But also, some detectives are very, very reliant on them for generating leads and generating suspicion or eliminating suspicion. But then there's others that think they're kind of junk. And, it's almost like I've heard that same kind of conversation around like body language experts and people that look at what that may or may not imply about a suspect. And so, they're an interesting topic, but I do think there is some value to them. It's just how much value is there? I think it depends on who you're talking to. It's very
obviously the person I was talking to.
Well, sure, and let me be clear. That's not. I'm not
No.
I'm not
but
discrediting
he brought this
anything.
up too. He brought this up too because the thing about polygraphs is, some are more trained than others in making them work the way they should, right? Like that was his day to day, every day. He'd seen it all. He achieved a symbiosis with that machine. He became one with it, right? But your smaller region, lower frequency person working that machine, maybe it's the sheriff's deputy who uses it once a year, isn't necessarily going to understand the nuances.
Right.
So practice makes perfect.
Yep. That's what they say.
That's what they say. So before we go, we've come together and we've reviewed our notes, and we want to know what you've been thinking about what we've been doing. What would you like to see us cover? Let us know in the usual places, if Patreon, deviantpodcast.com, or on social at deviant.podcast. That's Instagram, that's TikTok, that's YouTube. We're in all those places. So we definitely want to hear from you. But before we go and go to our separate corners and keep working on what we're working, let's tell you about what we're working.
I was going to say, what are you working on?
As I mentioned before, I'm doing more newsy stuff. Like if you follow us on social, you're going to see me talking more about the stories that are happening now and turning those into the shows that we listened to earlier in the week, right? Sometimes it's going to be those kinds of shows. We want to try to be more present and newsy with some of the stuff that we're talking to. And you saw that with how we handled Devil's Den. And we're going to keep doing that for the cases that pop up like that as they pop up. So you're going to see me a lot more on social. So definitely come interact with me. Come leave me your comments. I read them all, and I want to hear from you. How about you? What you working on?
First of all, do you really respond to all your comments?
I mean, if most of them, yeah, unless you're someone just being an asshole, then no. But generally, yeah. So don't be an asshole.
As far as what I'm working on, it's no secret to you, Dan, that I'm really interested and have always found very, very fascinating kind of the world of crime meets extremism, like fringe ideas and all of that kind of thing.
We have a pretty significant body of work that we've built up with.
That's just, it's been that way for a long time.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, I've just always found that really, really interesting. And,
and it's pretty topical right now.
Yeah, kind of depending on the way you look at it. Like, So I've been working on what I believe is going to be a pretty robust series about extremism and diving into that universe. And I think I sent you a couple of clips, which you are free to run at your convenience.
Tampa 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Hi, I have a white Caucasian guy. He came to the office saying that he just killed 2 people. And he's walking towards a shopping area, aggressively walking. I'm afraid he's going to start shooting people.
I think that I lack, the human ability to have empathy like other people. I don't know. I truly believe the reasonings, the beliefs that I have and stuff like that are grounded with reality, but overall, I don't know. I don't really care either way. What are the odds of me just, telling the place, look, my brain is not right. I can't really function well.
So after hearing that, we know that it's in Tampa.
We do.
Which is where I am.
We do. That's all I'm going to say about it, though, because I'll leave the rest for when it's time. That is coming soon. We don't have sort of the definitive launch on that yet, but that is coming soon, and it's a really, really important, fascinating story for a number of different reasons.
Let me tell you something about how Andrew works. When Andrew gets his teeth into a story, oh man, he'll disappear. He'll disappear and just go down the deepest of holes and come out with amazing journalism and amazing reporting. This is going to be something that I think that is really going to stick with you. And you know that we're going to be giving you everything that there is to give you. This is one of those no stones left unturned stories.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dan, for your kind words.
I said you're my podcast's better half.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that.
Well, so yeah, that's coming soon. That's all I'm going to say about it, really. That's all I got.
All right. So let's get out of here and go work on our stuff. Let's get to our corners and hit us up. I told you where. A couple times. You have no excuses for not knowing, but we do want to hear from you. We do want to talk to you. And if you have any guesses as to what Andrew is working on, let us know that too. So until next time, which is this Friday, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Deviant is written and produced by Andrew and me. It is executive produced by Clark Goldband, Andrew, and me, with original scoring by Shuvo Sir. Sales, distribution, and marketing support comes from our partners at Gemini 13. I think I'm leaving one part out at the end.
Deviant is a production of Cold Open Media.
That's it.